You're keeping time in general on.
Okay, so we're going to dedicate about 15 minutes. We're going to try to keep it to 15 minutes because there are a lot of points on here and on the agenda for the rest of the agenda, so we need to move forward. So there was a petition that we received at our agenda setting meeting. So the way the neighborhood council sets the agenda in our bylaws, it says that the executive committee, which is the president, the vice president, the treasurer, and the secretary, those four people are the executive committee, and they are the people that are on the board, and then we elect within ourselves who will become those people on the executive committee. So Steve, after last year's election, was elected the president. I was elected the vice president. Andy is our secretary, and Marie Gruel is our treasurer. This body is supposed to set the agenda. When this body does not meet, the chair has a right to set the agenda. So if you look at the LA City Council, that's almost exactly what happens is the chair of the city council sets the agenda for the other 15 council members, or the other 14. He's the 15. So, sorry, off topic. So what this petition is about is it's basically a set of accusations against Mr. Appleton, and I will read it. But in our bylaws it says President can be petitioned for removal if enough signatures are gathered.
And you correct, it's not removal of the president, it's
Right.
removal from the board. So
A removal from the board, not removal from president. So again, to clarify, the position of the president is one of the board members' positions. So this is not just a removal from the position of president, but a removal from the board. So we also submitted this to city attorney, and they have advised us basically that there might be some legal questions about the petition because there are some accusations which don't have any truth in them. So, like, I will just say that there are definitely points on here that are not truthful points and could have convinced certain people reading this to sign it. So I'm going to read it now. We are petitioning the Elysian Valley Riverside Neighborhood Council under Article 5, Section 9.8 to have Mr. Steve Appleton removed from the office of President and off the Elysian Valley Riverside Neighborhood Council. Mr. Appleton has not served the community members of Elysian Valley in an equal and impartial way. Under Mr. Appleton's presidency, he has not followed the Elysian Valley Riverside Neighborhood Council bylaws. He has amended the bylaws illegally for his own need and self-interest. He has also taken it upon himself to approve all items on the general agenda without going through the executive board's approval. This is a clear violation of Article 7, Section 2 of the Elysian Valley Riverside Neighborhood Council bylaws. He has also been insensitive to the needs of the 60% Latino that make up our neighborhood. Since elected, Mr. Appleton has not made the Elysian Valley Latino community part of the council's meeting. He has ignored many requests to have interpreters, notices, and agendas in other languages. It is time for new leadership in our community. It is also time to correct the mistake that was made when Mr. Appleton was elected. By signing this petition, you agree with the statement above. Thank you for your support and hope to see you at February 19, 2015 meeting. For more information, contact us at savethelaRiver@gmail.com. So before we would have just waited until word from city attorney, but it was actually at the urgency of Mr. Appleton himself that he wanted to put this before the board because there were definitely questions about who signed, and some of those addresses were not valid stakeholders. So this is basically a voluntary position, a voluntary move at this point on behalf of the president. What's going to happen is I am going to take public comment for 5 minutes. I will choose 5 people randomly. You will each have 1 minute. Steve will then comment for 3 minutes. Board discussion will then happen for 5 minutes, and we will take a vote. Yes?
Oh, I thought board discussion.
No, we're doing it after Steve's comments. So, yes. Is it a clarifying question?
No, I'm
Okay,
from the Department
oh,
of
okay.
Comment, so I wanted to say that
Yes.
one of the things that I can assist with is kind of helping you lay out some of the options because your agenda item is very general. It says to So there's different options that you have, so let me know. I can lay some out now, or we can wait until after public comment. But I just want to say, I think it would be important for us to share some of that information before you go ahead and take the vote.
So can you please do that?
Sure, so, I mean, obviously, the point of the meeting is for the board to listen to public comment and your concerns. But, one of the things that, I think was brought out in the advice from the city attorney was that, not necessarily that there's no truth to it, but that in order to take a board action, the board should be able to make findings to substantiate that, right? So one of the options that you have before you is embarking on that process. It's just to establish, what are the supporting facts, if any, to establish the veracity of the claims in the petition. So that's one option you have. So that goes, you could appoint an ad hoc committee to do so, which could include stakeholders. According to your bylaws, you can include stakeholders. So you can have a committee to look into the instances where any of these claims may have happened. You could also have the committee look into the signatures and, checking those. That's an option. You would have an option to just dismiss the thing altogether through, because that's your authority as a board. You can just dismiss it. I mean, you don't have the findings in front of you. That's a fact. So on that grounds alone, you could dismiss it. But ultimately, I think that for the community and for the board, whatever decision you make, the goal is really to address the grievances and the concerns of the community. And no matter what happens with the vote on the petition per se, I mean, you have, people who are obviously passionate, care about the community, and I think that we have plenty of options on how to address the causes of grievances. So, so those are just a couple options, and some more may arise out of the public comment, or so if I think of something else, I'll let you know, or if Barry does. We're here to advise and clarify. So, are there any questions about what I just said?
No, thank you. What was your name again? I'm
My
sorry.
name is Amber Mishak,
Rishak, and you're with
the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I will start taking public comment. 5 people will be chosen at random, so raise your hands if you would like to give public comment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So you will each have 1 minute. In the order I pointed at you, please.
First of all, for us to understand what they're talking about is that he didn't violate any of this stuff, and yet, look at the room. Outreach hasn't been done. There hasn't been anything done even through the executive board until we brought it to their attention that they ever consider having an executive board meeting. Mr. Appleton, several times, I submitted a grievance and the petition. It wasn't voluntarily that he accepted this petition. In fact, if anybody was there on Sunday's meeting, he just looked at the paper and said there's not enough signatures. That's not a person that I think that any of us should look at as a person that can lead our neighborhood or the neighborhood council. I also look at every neighborhood council member here because they're going to be taking a vote whether Mr. Appleton stays or not. And I think that every one of you guys have to look at the community because they're here today. They're here because they care about their community, and if you do the proper outreach to them, they're going to come. You guys haven't done it, and unfortunately with Mr. Appleton closing out a lot of things, it's just not fair to them, and I don't think that a leadership on a board
Okay,
should
thank
have
you,
that type
thank
of
you,
power.
thank you. Okay, who's the next person? Okay, second.
I'm evidence of what he's just talked about. I just found out about it today through word of mouth. And yeah, it wasn't important. And he was shut me down. I don't even know his powers in this, other than today, first time seeing him. I just wanted a proof for, a date. When will you have notifications? When will you, if you want to work with the community, then work with us. Give me a date know that you are gonna translate all these fires and that you are gonna keep us informed, because at this point, it feels like there's two sides of the fence, and it's like an eye-opener right now. I'm in shock and in disbelief that this is going on, and has been going on, and I didn't know about it, so this is proof. Everybody here, and I can get more people, not a problem. I'll make copies myself. I'll go door to door. But this is evidence here, all these faces that you've never seen before, that we are not being informed. And this is wrong. It's really wrong.
Okay, thank you. The third person I asked. And please keep your applause down. We are just trying to move forward on these items. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John St. John. I've lived in this neighborhood for 56 years, and I've never heard of this board, never got to ask to vote who I wanted to represent me in this neighborhood. Kind of a little bit perturbed because I'm wondering who elected this man to be the president and exactly what this board is doing to benefit the neighborhood. I came in here blind. I only heard about it 3 days ago. But I'm kind of wondering why it wasn't ever mentioned at the school, which is Doris Place I went to. It was never mentioned at Irving or Marshall. None of the neighborhood, the people I talked to even knew this thing existed. I'm kind of curious why. And why is it so secretive? I mean, it should have been at least mentioned to the homeowners, because I am a property owner. So I'd like to know a lot more.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Who's the board person? Please comment.
Yeah, I grew up in Ashley. Been in the neighborhood for about 5 years. I've actually known Steve for about 5 years myself, and I'm actually quite blown away that this is happening. I've only seen Steve show a lot of integrity, and he's always made the neighborhood first. If people don't know about the neighborhood council, it's because it's your own fault. You're not engaging. It's posted. It's required by the Brown Act to post this, and if you guys aren't paying attention, it's because you don't know about the postings. If it's not the president's fault, it's the whole neighborhood council that's going to blame the whole thing.
Where's it posted? Please don't interrupt him. He has time. He has time.
I don't know. I'm not sure. There's about 5 places that I know. I've actually had to put postings out myself before when I used to be part of the neighborhood council. Steve, in my opinion, has throughout 5 years I've known him, has always looked at the community first. Always has. When we started the kayaking program on the LA River, the main reason we did it is because the other kayaking company who was coming in here in our backyard didn't want to engage the neighborhood. They didn't want to give discount prices.
Thank you.
And Steve's primary reason for getting involved in that.
Okay, and we had one more person. Go ahead.
I've been working with a lot of you guys here, and slowly, little by little, we've been meeting with each other. We've been gathering up, trying to learn together on our own. Think about that. Us as our own. They haven't never invited us, and we're working better than they are, just by the people. And so what I'm asking is to really think about it. Who has been there for you guys? And the only search of knowledge is through us. The only reason why you have the city attorney here, the only reason why I had. Look, this is the first time that we have speakers in translation for the very first time. That I've been coming to these meetings for the past over a year and a half, and I've never seen it.
So, what's going to happen now is I'm going to talk a little bit myself, and then I will ask 5 board members, each with 1 minute. Sorry. Before we get into the board discussion, I will give Steve 3 minutes to address some of these concerns, and then we will get into board discussion, which will take place after Steve's comments.
So, first off, I want to say for those of you that I have met recently and spent time talking with heart to heart, and I have many people, I do that because I really do care about this community, and it's very easy to walk around and say, there are a lot of guys that look a little bit like me walking around. There may be some confusion and say, Steve is in the pocket of developers, or Steve is this, or Steve is that. If you haven't sat down and talked with me and you haven't been at these meetings, you may have a very different impression from things that people said to you than the facts. The facts are these. I mean, I'm going to pass these around. Feel free when you get home to take a look at it these are two different instances where I was out there. I'm gonna run out of time, Daniel, I need more than.
Okay, just go ahead.
Just a second, this is, in the last 2 years, there have been times where people have called me because of the work I've done in the community. There's NPR radio, KCET radio, and you can see the quotes of what I said, and I'm just gonna read one of them. This is Warren Olney. There's a very well-known LA Times reporter there, me and Barbara Romero. My statement to them was this: residents are concerned about displacement. This is in 2013. The local community would like to see a matrix of businesses that provide jobs and opportunities for people in their neighborhood and also spread benefit to people who have historically been living in this community. Residents are asserting a role in this planning process, and that's what we look for. This is the way I've been speaking to power in the city on behalf of this neighborhood. As for us being out here in this number today, I couldn't be more pleased. What I can say is, for the activists that have come out and brought a lot of people out, that is what we've been looking for. It takes a whole community of people to do this. To come in and attack, and these accusations are false. For instance, our neighborhood council is one of the few that has live translation equipment, and 5 times the last year has utilized it. We had a presentation on river restoration. We had over 200 people there. The Army Corps representatives we called in, the city engineers we called in. We had live translation, and we want more of those opportunities to continue to do that work. The harm that comes from taking somebody down who's been working in this way for the community is everyone will fear. We need to come together as a community. The city right now on these zoning things is looking and saying, if the community is divided, we can do what we wish. This is a divide and conquer kind of thing. I respect the work you guys have done as organizers, but we got to sit down with one another and talk. We got to sit down and talk. I'm very willing to do that. People that have met me and shook my hand this last week know, number one, I got some calluses on my hand. I am not a developer. Number two, I have been in this neighborhood 13 years, and I have been here with the intention to work with everyone, and I continue to. So that's what I have to say. The best thing that could come out of this is we got a lot of activated people here, and I'm proud of that. But you got the wrong target. There's a word called scapegoat, and I'm being made a scapegoat for things that are not my doing. I have no control over, and in fact, I've been trying to ratchet them. That's what I can say.
Thank you. Please ask your question, Jeff.
I prepared some notes for our discussion portion. We're not bound by the same time limit on public comment. The board can actually discuss, right? Okay.
Make whatever time limits you wish for a board discussion.
Right.
But what I would do, and this is a recommendation, just to kind of, help everybody get their mind around it, is that maybe set a specific amount of time, and then if you need to extend it, have the board vote to extend the time, so that you're not, you're not just endlessly taking it on for 1 or 2 comments. So that's just a recommendation.
Any suggestions on the board at this point on the time?
3 minutes? 3 minutes?
So 3 minutes each?
Oh, total, oh.
A total amount of time, that's what I'm asking, because we do want to move through this agenda.
I think 3 minutes is very limited. I think we would like to give more than 1
Yeah.
or 2 or 3 people.
About
Okay.
10 minutes?
10 minutes? Okay, we're agreeing on 10 minutes for board discussion. At this point, can someone time that 10 minutes?